TopLobsta Productions.
In the shadows of the ancient ones, they never went away. They're still here today.
Nephilim Death Squad. When the last trumpet sounds and the heavens crack, blah, 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 blah. Nephilim Death Squad. Nephilim Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka The Raven. That is TopLobsta, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, a little reminder, if you want to support us, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad is the place to do it. You'll gain access to episodes that are unedited, ad-free. You also get early dibs on tickets to Bohemian Grove whenever that happens. If that happens, I'm sure it will.
I'm sure it'll happen.
I'm
at
sure
some
it'll
point.
happen. And discount codes off of merchandise from TopLobsta.com. Pick a shirt. Which shirt are we going to
Pick a
look
shirt, any shirt. We're gonna go with the Blap shirt today. Hell
okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah, the one with the missing tooth that really makes me really happy. Yeah.
I like that one. A couple people, I've seen somebody wearing that. I like it.
Go and get your Blap shirt at toplobsta.com. Guys, joining us today is Dave Benner. Thank you for coming to the show, Dave. Before we get into the conversation, let's talk about what it is you do and where people can find what you do.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm already amped up from your intro video.
yeah.
I'm already pissed at BlackRock and Israel just from viewing that. So you guys are doing your job. Yeah, man, I run Liberty Vault. It's a YouTube channel. I'm also on Twitter. I do political commentary, especially focused on deep state corruption and foreign policy issues. You can check me out on Twitter at dbenner83. Also, my website, libertyvault.net. And it's interesting that you mentioned Bohemian Grove. I take it that's like your festival. I just did a 20-minute segment on Bohemian Grove with Shane Cashman, so it's kind of ironic. So.
Oh, I'm sure it was a banger. We love Cashman on that. We just had him on recently.
Love
one of my
him.
favorite people. Yeah, the Bohemian Grove. Well, actually, you know what? This kind of I want to start this because I'm a little bit out of my depths. I'm politically retarded.
I am so excited for this episode. You have no idea.
He likes when I'm exposed to this sort of thing.
Because I come from the background of like geopolitics, politics, libertarian theory, things like that. I also do comedy, so I dabble in that, and I love conspiracies, and I also love Jesus Christ. So like we're like, all right,
Amen, dude.
we got conspiracy, we have Jesus, but when we go separate here,
Yeah.
it's like I know about politics, and David's like politics is theater at the highest level, and that's pretty much where it stops. with him.
Amen. Yeah, that's my philosophy on these
He's
things.
not incorrect.
Well, before we even get into it, I have to ask because we used to do a show.
Are we going to be using any words that I might not understand?
Virtually every word. If you say the word Mises Caucus to me, I don't really know what even that sounds like a euphemism for a penis to me. Check out my Mises Caucus. So we used to do a show and it was a bit politics and culture and comedy and conspiracy. It was a big blend of all these things. And on that show, I would say things like, mark my words, one of these days it would come to pass that all of the conspiracies about QAnon and
we were doing the show with Clint Russell.
Yeah. So I was I would say this thing to Clint and he wouldn't roll his eyes.
He was, you know what?
He was trepidatious.
He was graceful about it.
He was graceful about it. He just wasn't too sure how much to get into it. But I would say these things that QAnon are talking about, or the Anons of Q, they always get pissy when you say that. I believe it's a psyop, but I do think that many of the things they're harping on will come to pass. They'll be exposed in one way or another. And as we sit here, we're coming off the back of the DOJ, releasing, like 6.5 million files that are, a lot of it is just noise and
6
nonsense.
to 7 million, yeah.
Insane. It seems a little high to me, but that's how many files have been released. And then we also have this.
Starting this shit already, Dave?
I didn't mean that. I'm just saying it just seems like a lot. I would have never guessed it would have been that many. And then we have this deposition that's going on with the Clintons, which is, in my opinion, it's theater. It's all to bolster this big thing. But whatever, take it at face value. If you look at it, it's remarkable. I mean, you have Bill Clinton starry-eyed, reminiscing over his Epstein days. If you look at the videos, he's like looking at the evidence on the table of him. It's like images, you know.
I remember fucking those kids.
I remember fucking that kid. And then you've got you know, Hillary Clinton. They're asking her about Frazzle Drip. So you're a guy who's been in this for a really long time. You know, you were talking earlier, you said since 2004. And you got back in it when Ron Paul was running. So it's what, 2012.
Oh, by the way,
it's a very cool picture. Yeah, but let's pull that off the wall and show that off. And I'm curious. I like that one. There it is.
Even see it, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Shout out to
Dave Burns.
Dave Burns. Yeah, he makes great artwork. So I'm curious as to your take watching this unfold. It seems like you know, the political realm has been forcibly injected with some real harrowing shit. And the flavor of that harrowing shit is like child sacrifice and things of that.
It's where we dwell.
This is where we reside. Yeah, man. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you're lambasted as a conspiracy theorist over the last decade, you can't say that those people haven't been proven true, at least to some level. And we were just proven true. We can talk about Epstein in a second, but I'll just say the Speaker of the House and the Secretary of State just admitted something that we would be smeared as anti-Semites are saying, and that's that Israel dragged the United States into a freaking regime change war. So that's what they said when they allowed the mask to drop. When it comes to the Epstein files, we're again seeing things come to fruition that a lot of dissidents were smeared for. Now, I never really got that deep into like QAnon, but you can't deny the amount of times these people are speaking in code. And this was asserted back in 2016 when the Podesta emails were hacked. They were using, you know, pizza and grape soda and jerky and other terminology that seemed to refer to stuff that wasn't pizza, wasn't actually jerky, and wasn't actually grape soda. And now you see Epstein using that same string of text with various people, including someone that was his erectile dysfunctional specialist. I mean, what's to say about that? It does prove some of the surface level things about what was said back then. It also shows Epstein's ironclad ties to Israel, doing literal work on behalf of the Israeli government and security arrangements. He had top spies living with him, the head of former IDF intelligence and former Prime Minister Ehud Barak with him. He wire transferred money to Israeli spies. He worked on marketing a energy project called the Leviathan Field to the west of Haifa. All these different angles show Epstein's deep connections to this criminal underbelly that's really transnational. So they smeared us for conspiracy theories regarding that, just as they did for saying, hey, it's not going to be 2 weeks to slow the spread. It's not going to be that, you know, you're going to be able to get by with this criminal government operating above you. So that's how I see it.
You know, as a man, if you should enjoy a penis from time to time, they see fit to throw you an entire parade. You get a whole month. You know what I mean? You go to any big city. Want a month? I'm just saying, can we get a parade? I'm not asking for a whole month. I think that's a lot, but
we
just
could take
like
February. February is open, right?
We could take February. I don't know who had it before, but I'm just saying if we could have a parade where we just did once one day out of the year, you show up and there's like a giant Frazzle Drip float, right? Where it's an inflated Hillary Clinton and she's got like a kid's face over her face.
We don't need like the celebration and the vindication, I feel like, is part of this weird trap, right?
Like conspiracy pride parades is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean,
it's pretty much the gay parade, but
oh yeah. Okay. So it's a redundancy. I get it. But I don't know. I just think enjoying same-sex interloping gets you a whole parade. Why can't being right consistently get you a parade?
All right, Dave. So you've been looking at this stuff, and it's kind of like I get tentative when I'm touching on like the deeper conspiracy with people who are like really know their shit about politics, because a lot of them like to look at the nuts and bolts of the politics, and you need those guys. Like we had on Dave Smith, and we for some reason decided it's a good idea to have a conversation about God, like what is God?
That got clunky.
It got clunky because he wasn't willing. It was I don't know, a year or 2 years ago. He wasn't willing to like kind of go into the crazy waters with us at that time.
And he was just coming off the back of like some sort of a debate with
Andrew Wilson.
And I think he was looking out for gotcha moments. And we weren't trying to create those, but he was on edge, so it was a little bit difficult.
So like I try to like walk that line, but like you've obviously been in it and you've been seeing this stuff for a long time. Why do you think you're seeing it now? And not just seeing it, but why do you think the entire world is seeing this right now? Because it seems too obvious.
Yeah, man, great question. I think it really is mostly a product of the rise of independent media, where now people's information sources aren't just filtered through like, a few big newspapers and then a few cable conglomerates. We actually do have dissenting voices. And some of it's co-opted, don't get me wrong. The FBI reassigned Dan Bongino back into that space for a reason. Let's just be real. But at the same time, we are having new voices that are critical of this debacle, this foreign policy that always is Israel first. It's always globalist oriented. It's always based on empire building. The things that we were smeared again for being called lunatics before is becoming more and more apparent, especially when you see that this propaganda slop being used to support it, that somehow this is in our interest. It is a regime change. It isn't a regime change. It was for the sake of Israel. It wasn't for the sake of Israel. We've been at war for 47 years. We had to take out their nuclear program, but we destroyed it back in the summer, but now we still had to prevent them from acquiring a nuke. All these stupid things, they're so contradictory. It doesn't even match the coherency of like the George W. Bush era neocon propaganda. That's just war, but you see it in the Epstein scandal. This was a Democratic hoax. We had to pay attention to flooding in Texas. You're not my real supporter if you want answers here. We get the same obfuscations that are being exposed more than ever, I think, generally because of the rise of the independent media.
But it's still, so I agree in a sense that there is an independent media that is shining a brighter light on these things. But the mistakes of these countries to be so obviously, like, it's just blatant in their propaganda. Like, I don't know, meeting with Tim Pool under Chatham House rules and then having it be like, if you wanted to do that, couldn't you do that in the secrecy of the night? But like, no, this is in the news. It's reported on and everyone is looking at it and going, hey, what the fuck are you doing over there? It just seems like we're supposed, like they want us to see. So that way the narrative could, there was a time and point where, like, I'll just kind of go back where I actually put up a short that I found of Dave and Rob. They're like, I don't understand what Top's problem is with the Jews. Cause I've been talking about this stuff for a long time and I've been using hard comedy and it can get like a little messy. But what I'm talking about is Israel. I'm talking about the government of Israel. And like, people weren't getting it. People weren't getting it a while back. Now, if you don't get it, I don't know what's wrong with you because it's so right in your face. Like even, Dave
That's the thing. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily people have gotten smarter as much as it's the display.
Yeah, it's like now we're supposed to move in that direction. It's almost like,
well, here's an example of it. Benjamin Netanyahu, February 28th. This is the day after or the day of that that Trump announces. And he goes, he just posted. So anybody who's thinking like, oh, this isn't the case, this isn't for Israel, yada, yada, yada. He goes, good week, my brothers and sisters, citizens of Israel. This morning, Israel and the United States set out on a joint operation to remove the existential threat to Israel from the Ayatollah's regime in Iran. So specifically, he's saying, we talked about this on a previous show, a joint operation to remove the existential threat to who? To Israel. So in other words, the regime, Ayatollah's regime, is an existential threat to Israel, and therefore we've attacked. That's what he's saying out in the open, right there on Twitter on February 28th.
There's not even a lie. Like at least the George W. Bush administration had some like fun lies.
Yeah, they was full of lies, but they stuck to script. They said weapons of mass destruction. He gassed his own people. He might share the bomb with a terrorist group to attack us. Now it's like everything they're throwing out, it's just spaghetti thrown against the wall and hope that it sticks. But then the next Trump administration official that speaks next kind of contradicts part of that. So yeah, I think it's total slop.
Yeah. It's an interesting time and it's an exciting time. I mean, earlier I said that, or we mentioned that I look at these things as theater, and I had an interesting little prophetic bit that I put on Twitter, and I wonder your thoughts on this. So I was saying back on the 31st, I think it was the 31st of January.
Please excuse the conversation because we'll drag it into Crazy Town, but I do want to know I want to
understand the inner workings of this, but I want to give him some framework about where our psychotic, or at least my psychotic suspicions lie. And it was after the release of the DOJ files. And I said, I'm looking out for a number of things, 3 things in particular coming next. And I tweeted, it would be either the economic collapse, the collapse of the dollar, Iran versus Israel, or UFO disclosure. And it turns out all three of those things are on the table now, less than a month later. And the reason that I thought that is because I imagined some time ago that this whole thing is going to function like a script, whether it's like Agenda 2030 or whatever people are comfortable with. It's part of an elongated plan, and that these things, the files themselves, the Epstein files, they serve as a plot device, and they would release these when they're ready for the next thing. And ever since then, we've been thrust into complete chaos. And I think it's going to be sort of an order out of chaos situation, but I think that chaos might go a little bit further than people might have imagined. And so I don't know. I mean, this seems like it's been something. I didn't make a prophetic claim. I don't have clairvoyancy. It all seemed very obvious to me that these were things that were positioned to happen. In particular, this issue with Iran. Does this strike you as something that was long in the wings in waiting, or is this something that is genuinely spontaneous because Iran has crossed the line?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, this has been in the cards in terms of what the neocons, what the devout, rigid Zionists have wanted since the 1990s in what's known as the Clean Break Memo. And a lot of your audience might know about this, but Wesley Clark revealed when he walked into the Pentagon weeks after 9/11 that he had been shown plans that the United States wanted to do a regime change operation in 7 countries in 5 years. And the only one that hasn't come to fruition yet is Iran. And it's the one that Netanyahu and even the Israeli left, like Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert at times, have wanted to overthrow. And it is on our bankroll. It's on our dime as they infest our political class, our political climate, and really rob us of our sovereignty. So no, this is not new whatsoever. And a lot of people back in, a lot of Trump supporters back in the summer said, well, this is the off-ramp. Trump took it. He took the escape hatch. He proved that he's not a neocon. Well, but Miriam Adelson still gave him $150 million in his last campaign. The Adelsons filled his pockets to the brim. He appointed Mike Huckabee and Marco Rubio into his cabinet, some of the most diehard Zionist neocons imaginable. So this is absolutely not new. It seemed like a matter of time. A lot of us talked about it for many, many years, and were smeared as if, again, we were coming up with anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Israel doesn't control our foreign policy. We don't do foreign policy on behalf of Israel, but we're seeing that that's not the case. We actually do that. And by we, I mean our criminal government, not me and you.
Do you think
we were coming up with anti-Semitic conspiracy theories? I mean, that was on purpose. Yeah,
but that was just on purpose.
Yeah,
those were legit.
That's fun.
But so do you think that why do you think that they're doing this? Do you think that it's just a land play? Like we know they have eyes on the greater Israel. We know that maybe they want things, but then there's also like other religious ideas at play where we have the idea of the Goyim being thrown around to the masses now. Maybe for the first time in history that people are kind of, not in history, but in American history, that they're understanding how they're feeling about.
I would love to know, like, if you could
Christians.
record the number, like how many boomers in particular were, got wind of this and we were like, what's a Goyim?
Yeah.
Like for the first time that enters their cultural zeitgeist. You actually. Yeah.
So do you think the play is more about like what Israel can get, the land grab, or is it about how much they can destroy or take? Because, it just seems like I don't know, they could do these things and still get what they want, but there is like this nefarious side where like our culture is being destroyed. There is poison in the food in the air. I don't know. I mean, you name it, the conspiracy, and then people point to a Steen or whatever. Do you ascribe to that?
I think it's about territorial conquest and, unrelated to the territorial conquest, just hegemony in the region. This is what they see as kind of their last roadblock to total regional domination, in which they're the only country that even has, modern military weaponry to the extent that they do, other than Iran. So they see the destruction of Iran as a good thing, regardless of what kind of government follows, because we saw this same model play out in Syria in the Syrian civil war, Operation Timber Sycamore. If you know about that, that's where the CIA tried to overthrow Syria. And eventually it was overthrown, but at the behest of the Turks and others that joined into that, siding with literal Al-Qaeda and ISIS above the Alawite Shia that they wanted deposed. Not deposed because of the United States was ostensibly, at least for a time, engaged in war against Al-Qaeda, but you had the United States dealing in duplicity to help them. So they didn't really care exactly what kind of government emerged in Syria. It was just a destabilized, vulnerable regime. They hope the same thing is true in Iran. And I do think it is mostly about territorial conquest. And ultimately, they could push the US aside and side more with the BRICS countries and China and India and Russia that have all been kind of pushed together by US foreign policy and really drive a wedge between them and us eventually. But I do think it just generally is about regional hegemony that, you know, our warmongers won in the Western hemisphere. That's what they want there. And they're getting it at our cost, at our expense through extortion via the IRS. So
it does seem like they're leveraging sort of evangelical Zionist Christians in the US.
There's like that level of biblical prophecy that they do lean on and play on, and they manipulate the masses in America, at least with that.
Yeah.
It's just I guess from your point of view, you think that that's just a useful idiot kind of
let's add to that before we answer that question. So somebody in the chat was talking about this before. We talked about this in a previous episode today. A complaint received by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation alongside others from 40 different units across 30 installations. The complaint is that, here, let's read it. This morning, our commander opened up the combat readiness status briefing by urging us not to be afraid, and that what is happening with our combat operations in Iran right now is all part of God's divine plan. And President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark the return of Jesus Christ to Earth. And this is actually something that was supposedly a request for help submitted,
retweeted by dissident media.
Yeah,
right?
dissident media,
Okay.
And this comes from looks like a group of about 15 different people: Jewish, Christians, Muslims, and some non maybe secular characters, but. They're actually submitting this as a complaint, saying, maybe this is too far, this is inappropriate. So it does seem that there is a huge element, and now it's even in these briefings, to American soldiers, that this is a sanctioned war, sanctioned by who? Sanctioned by God, who has anointed Trump, and Trump is going to bring about the second coming of Christ.
It just seems like the foreign policy flavor of QAnon to me, but this is infecting a lot of the evangelical populace in the United States. I hate to say it. I am an evangelical because all that means is spreading the good word of Jesus Christ, which I ascribe to and I believe in. But at the same time, a lot of it is caught up in this Christian Zionism that's based on a perverted interpretation that didn't even emerge until 1800 years after Christianity was formed, when you had people like Darby selling lies about dispensationalism and this special role for the Jews. And you have a lot of Protestant evangelicals that literally believe like clearing off the Temple Mount and then building a third temple is a way to, kind of hasten the second coming. There's no biblical basis for it. Paul disposes of the idea of there being dispensationalism and a preference toward, Israel and its identity and its kingdom in Galatians chapters 3 and 6, especially, but in more places in the New Testament. The gospel's for all. And many people won't want to hear that, but the Jews have turned their back on Christianity, not by accepting Jesus Christ. So I don't believe in subsidizing any kind of religion or any kind of foreign policy on the basis of any ethnic group, any religious group. And a lot of the nonsense they use to sell it is just based on anti-Christian propaganda, if you ask me.
That I would agree with that, but there is something that you're touching on, which is this maybe something we could talk about a little bit here. Is it a small part of the play that's taking place, or is this much larger of a component in your estimation? This attempt to fulfill prophecy or push prophecy along or force the hand of God. How big of a piece is this of the puzzle?
I think that attempt to force like the second coming is a smaller niche of like the Protestant evangelical sect that just wants to support Israel at all costs because they believe that that's conducive somehow to your faith. But you have a subsection of that believes it. I think it's there. I mean, we saw it in, just in like the Huckabee interview with Tucker Carlson recently, at least bits and pieces of those kind of ideas. But at the same time, I think the main driver is just to support this country, just dump barrels of money into the coffers of a genocidal maniac and his regime at cost to the United States. So I think it's a small subsection of that. But they're erratic now, man, because people, especially on the right, younger people, are noticing this. That's why they're making major plays to buy out Paramount and TikTok, and now Larry freaking Ellison's trying to buy out CNN in a mass conglomerate strategy. And what this is, it's just in line with what Netanyahu pledged was the eighth front in the Israeli war. That's a front where the adversary is you and me. It's the American public that he said we have to wage an information battle. I'm paraphrasing from that meeting, but he literally said in his own words, your audience can look at this if they don't believe me. He said, weapons of war evolve throughout time. We have to adapt to the new weapons, and it is an information battle. That's why they want to buy out whatever semblance of media conglomerate in the corporate news, although it's dying, to use as weaponry against us to support this. So that's where I think it is.
It's and it's thrown us for a loop as well, because like we're looking at it through like this biblical lens of like maybe we're at the end times. And the only reason I'm looking at it that way is because of how quickly and erratically they're moving now. Like they have a goal in mind. Clearly, it's going to be to destabilize these regions and expand their territories. Yeah. But it seems like their goal has to get done by a certain point. Otherwise, you could have. Totally. It's been a long time that they've been doing this. I mean, we spent 20 years in just Afghanistan. So like that's like a kind of a long play. And then in the last 3, it's just been breakneck speed into insanity. And I'm trying to understand why, like short of biblical prophecy, why?
I think I know why, Top. And that's an incredible observation. I think that's a totally true observation. And here is why, in my estimation, that they see just in terms of every poll. Some of these people are Zionists and they're acting against our interests, but they're not unprivy to these polls that are showing that they're just losing the confidence of the American people, really for the first time, especially younger people. It's very generational. Not just that, but even people on the right are peeling off to this, when in the past you just saw aberrations like Ron Paul and Sam Francis and Pat Buchanan do that. They have a limited time constraint now, Top. They only see like their window of opportunity, the door at the end of that hallway, closing gradually, unless they accomplish this right now, when they still have, conquered our political class and they still have that influence that I do think will wane over time. I think it will be a follower to where the culture is moving on this. But in 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if actually one or of the two or both of the parties will nominate candidates that say, I don't believe in any aid to Israel. And I never thought that I would see that in my lifetime. But I think that's probable.
I had tweeted out, and not that I'm a fan of the guy. I think he's kind of dangerous in a lot of ways. But I said, Nick Fuentes will be president if you continue doing this. That's the way that we're headed.
If you continue doing this,
If you guys want that, and I don't think that's the right direction for the country.
Well, that's actually what because this is where I wanted to go anyway.
Can I ask him one question? Yeah. Just to like put some weight behind the statement, because you mentioned all of our political candidates beside, like a Ron Paul or maybe a Thomas Massey or a Rand Paul. How much veracity would you put behind this? Because I'll throw this around and I'll say our entire government system is brought and paid for by Israel. It's pretty clear when you look at the AIPAC money, and it's pretty clear when you look at how they behave toward these donors and lobbyists that are asking them to do things, because otherwise their actions are contradictory to like the benefit of the United States as a whole. But I don't make great points because I'm stupid. How would you bring this home for an audience of people who go, I don't understand how they're controlled, or like, if at all?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so what I'd say is, first of all, you're not freaking stupid, dude. You're thinking on a wavelength way above the general populace here. But what I would say is just demonstrate this based on the wars that the U.S. fought. Sure, you can say Ukraine. I know that has ties into the Rothschilds and some of these like very ardent Zionist and globalist forces. But at the same time, look at outside of that, what wars that the United States has participated in. You can make that linkage, but I think it's more apparent in, say, Libya and Syria and Somalia and Iraq, these countries that were on that clean break memo. And you were right to point out AIPAC. It gets a special carve out within our own government in terms of a lobby that doesn't have to register under Congress as a foreign lobby like every other group does. JFK tried to stop that in the 60s. Look at what happened to him. But I would demonstrate it by saying, just look at their actions. Don't look at what they say. Look at how our foreign policy manifests. And it always seems to manifest to side with this particular country. Whether or not you like that country, it's pretty apparent. And AIPAC, the things that the Zionists will always point out, I want to smash this thing that the Zionists always say about that, is they'll say and come back with, well, if you look at the national lobbies, the money that flows through AIPAC is actually a really small fraction. And if you look at it in that limited capacity, it's right. But here's what AIPAC does that a lot of people don't point out, is it specializes in maintaining donor records of large single issue donors, like the Larry Summers, like the Bill Ackmans, like the Larry Ellisons, like all these very ardent billionaire Zionists. They maintain contact with those people and say, hey, make personal donations to these candidates. They're totally in line with Israel's views. And then that conceptualizes really the grand overarching control that they have. So it's a hard question to answer, but that's where I'd start. Just look at the foreign policy, how it manifests, and which country's favor it always seems to manifest in.
That's crazy. That means that like that AIPAC tracker, which does a pretty good job, even though I think that person's like a kind of a liberal or like blue-haired liberal, does a good job. So you're saying it doesn't even scratch the surface of what some of these candidates and government officials are actually receiving.
100%. It's just the tip of the iceberg, if it's even that. I mean, that's just a small percentage of the dollars that flow through these Zionist interests and into the coffers of our elected officials and our bureaucracy, by the way, that sides with them because it's also conducive to the military industrial complex and the bankers too.
Well, that's the elected officials, right? And bankers and military industrial complex. What about influencers? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, how prevalent is that really? I know within this community, we love to point at each other and accuse each other of receiving $7,000, which is, it's a funny bit. It's a joke. And I know that it's obviously advantageous to control thought leaders in communities. And you know, that's not lost on me. But sometimes I go back and forth on how impactful that actually is. Sometimes I found myself speculating as to whether or not, you know, we just use Fed. We'll use that language. This person's a Fed, that person's a Fed. And it doesn't really always mean federal agent, but
it was fun when it was just in the libertarian sphere and we were pointing like, you're a Fed,
yeah,
you're a Fed. And, you know, even though it's like he might be, but the consequences were pretty low.
Right. But oftentimes,
not anymore.
Oftentimes you'll meet a person and you'll go, oh no, I think I was wrong about that. This is just a regular person who, through the lens of social media and their platform, looks one way, but in real life, this is just, you know, another schmuck like myself. How prevalent is that really in your opinion?
Oh man, I love this question because I've always thought it's kind of lazy just to like label someone a Fed and just move on. It's almost like the establishment. It's the dissident flavor of doing what the establishment does and just say, you know, you shouldn't listen to him. He's just an extremist. He's just a radical. He's just whatever they use to try to destroy you on that day. This is a way that dissidents don't have to actually argue on the merits of someone's argument and can just dismiss a person. I'm not saying that Feds don't exist. I do think Feds exist. I think they infect, you know, political factions, and they do try to do the bidding of the regime, whether it's just, you know, sometimes surveillance, whether it's actually a psyop. I think they exist, but I also think it's really, really lazy to just say Fed and just move on as if that's your get out of jail free card. You no longer have to make an argument. That's what we would smear like the corporate media for doing when they called us extremists. It's like, yeah, we should smear them for that, but we should have a counter argument about why they're retarded, right?
Yeah.
So I think dissidents do overuse that a lot, actually.
I think that nowadays what's more likely, I think a paid Fed is far and few in between. What's more likely is you toting about a narrative that you don't understand its origins. You don't know where it came from. Maybe it's designed in such a way that when you echo its sentiments, you end up getting a disproportionate amount of followers or positive reinforcement.
A good for instance is we just had like a big argument with some guy that's a fake archaeologist, and he is toting a government narrative and came after us to debate and embarrass and sink us. I guess that's what people think, but we're uncancelable. And I want to call him a Fed, but I also see the reasonings for him to back this narrative. And there are many, like, but one of them being is like, well, two of them, I guess his entire fan base kind of likes this. They want to swing this way, this like Zionist flavor.
Which is audience capture is a real thing. And it's hard.
He's written a book before where it backs that narrative. So he has to defend the claim. on the other hand, he's standing alongside of people who are actual government actors, like Lou Elizondo, who is a government actor. So I'm like, it's very slippery. It's tricky. And to call him a Fed is incorrect because most likely not.
Well, the best asset is an unpaid asset who's unaware, right? You don't want somebody to be aware of the narrative that they're pushing or the agenda that they're associated with. It would be best for the agenda.
I think there's a lot of unknowing dupes that fall into the hands of feds and do their bidding like without knowing that. But, you know, it's really kind of like a Pied Piper thing. So I think that's right. I just hear the term just applied to just about everyone. And it's like, they're not all feds. Like some of them might be feds, but if you're going to call Tucker and Candace and Fuentes and on the other side, Ben Shapiro and frickin' like all these people are not feds. Some of them probably are, and some of them actually probably run these schemes to argue with each other, but I just don't think it's all of them. I can't think that. And again, if you're not countering their arguments, I just think it's like the lazy dissident way to dismiss someone without presenting your ideas, right?
Yeah, it's we ran into that a little bit it's kind of why I stepped away from the Libertarian Party in a big way, because there's a lot of like libertarian principles where I'm like, especially during COVID, when COVID kind of exposed some of this real harsh tyranny, the government let its teeth out, and I'm arguing with libertarians who are, in a way, I understand what they're doing, but I'm like, hey, you don't understand. Like they have their boot on our throat, and in order to undo this, like you kind of have to use the government to undo. Like there are simple aspects like that, and I'm like, at some point, I'm like, I feel like you guys have been infiltrated so thoroughly that you are not just accepting the tyranny, but you're arguing in favor of it because you're against tyranny. It was very confusing. And I'm like, I just got to get the fuck away from you guys because I'm going to go crazy here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even people at the Cato Institute, like Ilya Somin, wrote articles that said vaccine mandates are libertarian. And that hasn't aged well at all. I mean, we look back and laugh at that, but there was a subsection of libertarianism arguing that. And I hate to think that, but that is the grasp and association that a lot of people came across and said, oh, that's a libertarian belief. But, it seems to pervert the type of libertarianism that the Mises Institute and the Rothbardians wanted to have. So, I mean, at what point do we just defend this terminology? To me, it's just like defending the ideas and the principles are more important than defending like a grand philosophy, because people make associations that wouldn't necessarily represent what I think, if that makes sense, Top.
Yeah, I like Tom Woods. He'll go to war for the world with the word libertarian, and I'm just like, man, Tom, just like it's not worth it. Let him have it. Let him have it, man, and make up another word or something. But like, these are all great dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, Dice thinks that too, and I'm good friends with both Tom Woods and Jeff Dice. Jeff is on the other side of that. I don't care about defending the lingo. Tom might, but then my retort sometimes, if I'm to be a curmudgeon, like an autistic curmudgeon, which I am, I guess at times, I would say, well, what about capitalism? Would you no longer ascribe to being a capitalist because Marx used that as a pejorative? He described it in a way that supports like corporate welfare and stuff like that. And it's like, at some point we have to use words that others understand, but it is a balance of using words that have been tarnished so much by charlatans too. So this isn't an easy topic to try to navigate through all the time.
Yeah, we get caught up on words with people.
Well, it's very difficult.
It's fucking
you
frustrating.
Find that in sort of a cultural subversion, that attacking the definition of a word and redefining things is a really great place to start. If you can disrupt the fundamentals that keep it from being able to have an effective conversation around it, right? So, just the idea, to use a great example, is like, what is a woman? It stops the whole conversation. If you can't even define the fundamentals of what you're talking about, then it really slows things down. It's a great way to throw gunk in the gears. I want to bring it back to something that we talked about before with the idea of like the younger generations kind of waking up to, the government of Israel's involvement with our own. And I wonder, as we're speeding towards this thing, Top, that you highlighted, where it's like, it seems like there's a goal and they're coming to it because they're getting really sloppy and they're moving really fast. That
hallway is getting thinner and they got to get through the door.
Well, it's like a race. It's a race between.
That's exactly what we're seeing play out, man. I think.
Yeah. I would say so. And I would say, if the goal was to eliminate Israel's enemies in the Middle East, I think it goes beyond that to like really crazy places. But a place that everybody can grasp is if Iran is really the last one of these, what was it, 7 countries we talked about earlier? Then,
Yeah.
That is a great goal that you could suspect is what they're racing towards.
I think they did a good job.
Oh, they did a great job.
How do you listen, I don't want to sound like a neocon here or anything, but I'm like, damn, we took out the president of Venezuela.
I mean, efficacy.
And Iran, it's like, these guys are getting really good at this.
Yeah, they're moving and shaking, dude. So then the race, you might be able to paint it as Iran's demise versus the awareness of the American public to realize what's happening and say no.
It kind of makes me question, like, okay, you get all that, you get it, you got it now, but these people are real mad.
It's like, yeah, even if they get Iran, what if a year from now everyone's like, wait a second, no, we know what we saw. and is that too little too late? Does it matter? Does Israel rise to some unstoppable superpower because now all their enemies are gone and they have from the whatever it is, the river to the sea, however the expression goes, or do we see that really soon? What are your thoughts on that, Dave, as far as the race between public awareness? Is it enough soon enough, or is it too little too late?
Well, that's a tough question. It depends on what you mean by soon enough. Now, do I think that this will produce anti-Israel presidential candidates in 2028? I don't think that. I think that'd be a little bit optimistic from our vantage point on this. But at the same time, if you're asking about presidential candidates, like I alluded to earlier, for 10 years from now, I think that might work. Regardless of the political system, the culture will change. And to some extent, I believe in what Breitbart said when, politics is a fast follower or a downstream effect of what you're seeing in the culture. Now, I think that what we know from history, though, is not that Israel can necessarily, even though we have overthrown a lot of regimes at their behest, and most recently Iran, they might have to deal with future adversaries because this behavior in the region is not just going to, win them more friends, even though right now they see Iran as kind of the final domino to fall in the clean break strategy. Like, the Turks don't exactly like Israel that much, by the way. And like the Saudis and Jordan innately would not like Israel very much unless the U.S. literally paid them off just not to go to war with Israel. You could see the Saudis turn. I know that the BRICS countries want them in their alliance, and they were entertaining a membership for some time. You could see these dynamics shift just as they've shifted against the United States. 2 examples in Afghanistan. The United States funded the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when the Soviets invaded through BCCI, a criminal bank. And, through Pakistan's ISI and the CIA, they funded them with weaponry. Well, then you see the emergence of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda within the country funding attacks against us. And then you see the United States fund Iraq in the Iraq-Iran war, at times funding both sides of that conflict. But both countries then eventually became the enemies, ostensibly, of the United States. So I think Israel might see that too. So if it's too little too late, I don't know. I see things shifting in a generally better direction than they've ever shifted before on the right. That's what I'll say. It's a white pill to me, that and the rise of the independent media. But whether it's too late, I don't know. I mean, we're $39 trillion in debt, inflation's through the roof. Seems like economic meltdown is just like a preordained destiny to some extent. But I do think at least people are awakening to this more than they used to. And that's at least moving in a better direction. Does that make sense?
It's a matter of perspective too, really, right? I mean, too late for us is one thing. Too late for Iran is another thing.
No, I agree. I agree with everything you just said. It's just now that there's the crazy card that we deal with on the show. And it's like, while all this dumb shit is happening, we have Donald Trump going, you know what, man, I might just disclose aliens. And it's not, the alien stuff is fun, right?
Well, something that,
but we know it exists. Like we know that the technology exists. And if we're talking about this kind of like economic calamity, you don't crash something unless you have what's ready to be built in its place. That's like a Pete Quinones kind of thing. He's like, start building what you want to see in its place. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Although I don't think we have the means to do it. But who does have the means is the government. So if they have this tech that's like ready to be released, we used a little bit of it, like the discombobulator in Venezuela. We have this on
great
deck.
success.
Great success. Great success.
They
the
were
best bleeding from
they
their
were
eyes,
discombobulated,
shitting from their butts. we have this ready to roll out. Like sometimes I start to think like, man, are they gonna base an entirely new, like just scrap this economy, everything you have, fuck you,
Roll out 0-point technology,
new stuff, yeah, all new stuff, and like just start moving as if, because that's how they do with currencies or economies. It doesn't kind of like slowly go away. It's like you guys were using the flour and like not anymore, and now we're using this. Everyone holding that, you're beat, and we're doing the new thing. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying that's a very good possibility, a very likely possibility that we're ready to move on to some crazy new technology that will really shift the dynamics of.
Well, let's give Dave some extra crazy for that, which is it's of the same flavor. It's of the same flavor. I don't know if you're aware of it, Dave. There's a gentleman named Chris Bledsoe, and he's a long time.
Crazy.
Well, yeah, he's a long time.
Oh yeah, the Bills and Patriots quarterback. Yeah.
No, not that guy. He's a different dude. This is a long-time abductee victim, right? He's in tight with the phenomenon, UAPs, UFOs, you name it. And he's been saying, to his credit, for a really long time, since like 2006 or 2016, that he was abducted in some entity that identifies itself as the lady. Take it all with a grain of salt, but gives him a prophecy, and that prophecy is that there's a multitude of a multitude of prophecies that he is the recipient of, but one of them in particular is about a coming war with Iran and Israel, which is not profound, right? We've kind of seen that coming for a long time, but that this war would get to a point where it would be on the edge of nuclear exchange, and that it would be stopped. What we would see is orbs rising up out of the ocean. Now, I want to frame this not even necessarily in the sense of something non-human, right? Maybe it could be framed as what Top is talking about, these technologies that they may or may not have, that either they reverse engineered, or it's just in the sense that the government is always, what's the expression, 10 to 15 years ahead of
like 70.
Yeah, maybe that might be more apt. Ahead of us, ahead of the public in their advancements in technology, and the idea that they would obfuscate a thing from us and create a whole scenario, or at least take advantage of an organic unfolding scenario to then introduce, these technologies or something like this. So this is what he's saying. Now this guy's going on a kind of a little bit of a warm up victory lap where he's saying, hey, we pointed to this as early as 2016. If you're in the UAP space, all these videos are hitting the internet in a time where none of it's verifiable because AI is crazy, of orbs coming up out of the ocean. If you look at disclosure, we were just reading earlier as a military intelligence personnel saying that he has on document over 500 instances, I believe, of times over the last 70 years where there was going to be an exchange, some of the nuclear variety, where it was allegedly thwarted by UFOs. And if you pay attention to that narrative at all, that's not new. There are people in all these documentaries that come out and go, I'm in naval intelligence for 30 years, and we witnessed, this UFO, unidentified flying out, UAP, you name it, come along and disarm a nuclear warhead. This is part of the cultural zeitgeist if you're paying attention to that thing. So I think to your point, Top, yeah, maybe even if this isn't aliens or whatever you want to call them, this could well be technology that the government has, and this could all be pointing to one big, not just a regime change, but a currency change, a big technological revolution, you name it. I think maybe all those things are on the table.
Yeah, here's what I say. So I'm not proficient in the UAPs, the UFO stuff. I do think the timing of unveiling that through who is it? Paulina Luna at the time when the Epstein files were at the top of people's minds is not necessarily coincidental. But what I will say is it's not even conspiratorial to think that there'll be some, it's the Great Reset, right? They're on the record talking about this, the change of kind of financial dominance throughout the world. You see it playing out in a way where BRICS hasn't done this yet, but there is a lot of people that want BRICS to drive to adopt like a new currency, right? And if they do that and allow that to become the new world's reserve currency, that will be economically catastrophic to the United States. So it's not even, I think, conspiracy where this plays out. I think you're seeing people openly talking about it it at globalist organizations like the Trilateral Commission and Council for Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum, etc. So I think that is the design for many people to want to follow. As far as technology that government is ahead of pace in developing, I don't know enough about that, but what I will say as a possible counter argument is it seems like sometimes entrepreneurialism kind of speeds out technology before the government, but then the government gets its talons in it and co-ops it. Examples are like Uber and 3D printing and potentially like Bitcoin, depending on what you think about that. Is like, I think it actually works in the other way where the government gets its hands in it, but after it's been produced by actual entrepreneurs. So just some food for thought.
I will say, yeah, so it's a misnomer to say that the government has produced. The government doesn't produce anything, but they do co-opt and they do fund these people that are producing these things. So they're usually the first ones in, and if they have their claws in it, they can make that proprietary for the government. Then you're under a government contract. In a sense, we're kind of like talking about the same thing, but using different words.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like the people that said, Palantir is a private company, right? But it's like, no, the CIA was its only client for 5 or 6 years. So you're exactly right. I mean,
so where do you think this is going, Dave? I mean, given everything that we've talked about here, especially in regards to like, the military being prepped for an ordained war that'll bring about the second coming, it seems like we're definitively moving in this direction. 2026, I mean, I don't know, is this a run-of-the-mill slow war? Or we got all this footage the other day of missiles striking here and there. It looked like Dubai and a number of other places.
Who knows what's real anymore?
Dude, honestly, we got this video of
like Tel Aviv being hit. I'm like, I don't think it's real.
I saw that.
The thing
like
about Israel is it's illegal to film for most purposes the hitting of missiles on Israeli territory, and they prevent that from law from being disseminated on the internet. So it's hard to know what exactly is real and not. People repost videos from 2016 sometimes.
Yeah.
As far as where it's headed, I don't know. All I can say is I think this regime change has so many scenarios that could be just disastrous for the American public. And I put it like this in some of my videos. Let me say this, and then you guys chime in. I want to hear your thoughts. It's like the United States engaging in like the most risky parlay bet in Vegas they possibly could, because here's what they want. They want regime change without putting boots on the ground. They want regime change and hoping that the regime that steps in for the Ayatollah suddenly doesn't want to develop defensive ballistic missiles. They want that same regime not to develop a modern navy. They want that same regime not to fund Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas. You're taking all of these bets, like a string of 6 or 7 bets that aren't even 50-50 bets. Some of them are like 90-10 bets going against the probability of, that happening. And you're stringing it together in a parlay bet that just seems like you're asking for the world for it to come to be. So I think that this is a perilous action. And, the only worst scenario could be the dedication of boots on the ground, which would, cost the lives of U.S. servicemen, plunge us deeper into debt, and destroy our country, regardless of the political ramifications to Trump or the Republicans or the Democrats. I don't care about that.
But Trump said that's not going to happen. He said we wouldn't do that.
I think he said he's considering it.
Oh.
Both Hegseth and Trump refused to rule it out yesterday. I haven't seen what either of them have said about it today. So you guys, I don't know, but.
Well, that would be an unmitigated disaster, but I agree. Like, how else do you do the thing? Like, it is kind of like a hope.
Yeah.
Although I guess you could just say like, hey, we'll do this shit again if you don't do what we say, but there's no guarantee that we get what that's the part that kind of confuses me. And even like on Israel's side, like, okay, so you've destabilized these countries. Now what? Like, you kind of have to invade, especially if you want to push back borders or what the hell, unless Israel just wants them destabilized so they can't interfere with whatever they're going to do. I
think it mostly is the destabilization. I don't think they particularly care what regime comes next as long as it's destabilized for Israel's hegemony, for their territorial ambitions. But at the same time, they want to do that on the backs of U.S. servicemen and U.S. money without putting the IDF at risk at all. So, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And Top, you just alluded to it right there. I can't think of a historical example, and I study foreign policy really hardcore. I'm not as knowledgeable as like Scott Horton and maybe some other people that we would know, but I can't find an example where a regime change came to fruition strictly from like air superiority, airstrikes and not boots on the ground aiding rebel groups internal to the country or like a mutiny within a country. That just doesn't happen. So
I don't know, unless they're relying on, it's impossible. Like maybe some sort of MK Ultra techniques.
I mean, you know where my mind is at, and I'm of the crazy variety. So I do think there's something going on with that whole they're going to do this. It's the same thing with the drone incursion in New Jersey, which seems to be happening again. I think they're going to, at the bare minimum, if you didn't want to entertain the idea of something extra crazy outside of the human experience, I would say that they're going to do a show and dance to us. They're going to, roll out these orbs or something. I think that guy Bledsoe, as much as I do think he's being misled, I do think he genuinely had an experience. But I think a lot of these experiences are in alignment with.
But to what end though? So like, what's the point?
Well, to the end that I think we're at this place that, when Alex Jones says a new world order, a consolidation of one world religion, one currency, one government, all these things, it's going to be consolidated under this new revelation to people. And that revelation will be of this variety. So if this guy is right, which I think we may see these things come to pass, but I think we're going to fundamentally misunderstand their nature, and they're not what Chris Bledsoe says. But I think we're going to be showing something. I think that's why I heard what you said, Dave, earlier, that it's interesting at the time that the Epstein files come out, we're getting this UFO disclosure thing, and it serves as a distraction, in other words, right, from these really damning, pieces of information.
There's a vernacular for this. It's called flooding the zone, right?
Yes.
When people are talking about one thing, it's flooding the zone full of other stories, other things that may be distractions from what really would be the most damnable thing for the people to actually pay attention to. And I think that's likely with the Epstein files, just because of how Trump behaved toward it. Like, he was willing to sink his entire presidency through 11 months of covering this up. I think that's the distraction and not the other stuff. So, I think that the other stuff is the distraction from the Epstein files.
That's a great Occam's razor. I could see that. And it is also worth mentioning the last time we had this, the meme of Epstein didn't kill himself was the same time, with the Podesta files and everything, that Hillary Clinton and Podesta came out and they rebranded and they called these things UAPs, and they started this conversation up.
And then we got COVID.
So there's a lot of things that seem to want to detract from the public's attention being aimed at the Epstein files. Yeah. But I actually
specifically, I mean, there's a lot. I don't know if it's true, but they say that there are like dates blocked out from 1999
to 2001 is the biggest missing chunk of the Epstein files, and take that for what you will. And there's some interesting stuff about 9/11 in there. Ghislaine Maxwell talks about being on a shadow 9/11 commission. This is not a conspiracy. This is in the emails. Take a look at it, and whether she would want to be on it.
Yeah, she's asked, and she's politely declined. She said, "No, I did it. I can't be on the commission."
It's a conflict of interest. I was way too close to the situation. Well, I mean, I look at these things. Go ahead.
Do you think that that's like, so, I mean, they can show us, I don't know, George W. Bush is cutting a baby's feet with a scimitar and drinking the blood and eating the guts.
That was Bill Clinton. Yeah,
whatever.
That was one of the tip lines. Yeah.
Yeah, we're throwing out a lot of crazy shit, but they're like, the 9/11 stuff, these people will go fucking berserk if we told them that you guys did this. It's like, that's the one thing that's off the files.
I don't know.
Even the dancing Israeli stuff that's thoroughly documented, if you bring that up, you're automatically just smeared, even when like the FBI acknowledges this, right? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about and it gives me great pause, these files, is that they seem to be, as a longtime conspiracy theorist, a vindication on every front possible,
except for flat Earth.
Except for I'm very sorry to the flat Earth guys out there. But otherwise, it's a vindication of everything you ever suspected to have actually been the case. Which I don't know, man. It's like, when do we ever get that? When do we ever get that? To me, I just feel I have nothing to back this except for, in my heart, it feels like a plot device, because we don't get that sort of thing. We don't get it all handed to us, and people go, "Well, the DOJ was forced," and I'm like, I sincerely don't think that's how it works.
They put everything on Epstein's shoulders.
They put it all on him. Yeah.
Like, those in-app game purchases that you hate? Epstein. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Like the World of Warcraft money or whatever. Is that what you're talking about?
It's,
Yeah,
it's
like-
the biggest scam in
yeah.
the world. It's something. It's probably the first conspiracy I ever introduced to my son, where I'm like, no, don't download that. I know it says free, but it's not free. All they're gonna do is show you cool stuff that you could buy, and it's gonna seem like a little bit of money, but it's gonna add up.
You're gonna tell me that this guy did that shit too? It's like I'm just having a hard time.
Yeah,
here.
like they have documents that say 10 co-conspirators, redacting all of them, and then they want you to believe that they coincidentally only redacted Les Wexner's name in that document, but not all the other 4,000 mentions of him. So you're exactly right. This is why I really think this scandal, the Epstein scandal, will go down as a bigger scandal than Teapot Dome, Watergate, JFK probably combined, because it involves more people of prominence, more files, more criminal networks,
More
and
events.
and they're hiding 2 to 3 million documents that aren't even declassified yet. So the prospects of us, getting that, maybe we'll get some of it, like the JFK files, in like 60 years. But this is gonna fester, man. This isn't going away.
Well, we're entering this time. We were talking about it with the war footage and everything, and whether or not that's even a thing that would be allowed to hit the internet, coming out of Israel. But between the files muddying the waters, and you might call it the fog of war, I think that's pretty apt given the circumstances. But AI has reached rapidly this point where I'm having a hard time, dude. I was scrolling earlier before the show, and I was like, well, maybe that is a goat man traveling the hillside in Scotland. It looked a lot like a goat man traveling the hillside in Scotland. And I don't know what we are, just given the timeline, the expedience with which AI is developing, it might be safe to say that either we're there right now, or within the month, we're going to reach a place where it's indiscernible. Not long ago. Within the month, yeah. Because not long ago, I was saying
prediction, man.
I was saying 3 years.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, a couple of months later, I reassessed the landscape, and I went, "Oh God, no!
Tomorrow,
it might be not 3 years, but like 6 months or something." That was maybe 2 months ago that I was saying that. Now I'm reassessing the landscape again, and I'm going, no, some of these things are getting past my radar. So what happens?
Oh yeah, on Twitter, you have like videos of politicians talking that sometimes I can scrutinize it enough to be like, no, I think that's AI slop. But sometimes, man, it walks that line where I'm not sure. And this is becoming prevalent, and it will be part of our future, whether we like it or not. This is already there.
Well, what does that look like for a guy like you, Dave? Because you're like trying to analyze.
For us, we report fake news.
Yeah,
and
it's fine.
great.
We have no problem doing that to people.
Views are through the roof.
Yeah, that's
but
it.
you gotta report real shit.
Earlier today, we showed a video of Joe Biden posing as a bunch of different characters.
He was a Dragon Ball Z character,
and we told people that it was real.
Getting interviewed by Mean Gene Ogerson.
Yeah, and it was a great video. Number one, and number two, we told people it was a real event. And so, you're sitting here trying to. It's kind of this really remarkable time. You're getting so much information, and so much of it is providing so much revelation. But then it's like, I don't know. You might imagine it like Indiana Jones when the wall is coming down. On the other side of the wall, it's all of a sudden it lifted up, and it was like the truth is there, and you start moving towards it, and all of a sudden the walls start closing, and it's like as the walls come in and that window gets smaller and smaller. Those surrounding walls, that's all complete disinformation, complete fake shit. And if they can fake these videos and they can fake images, what about like emails with human error in the text, and emails that show you a date and a time and a corresponding email address, a sender and a recipient, and the DOJ is releasing this. But it's like, if you can make all that other crap, you can make this. This is nothing. This is white background and text. And in a month, dude, I don't know where we're gonna be, but I don't know what to do about that. That I don't know what the hell is true anymore.
My devil's advocate response is, first of all, I totally agree. You're totally right that will happen. That is happening. It seems like that's pretty easy compared to some of the things that AI does today, that will happen. But I'm kind of a techno optimist compared to a lot of maybe my peers in the dissonant world, because I think there's going to be a consumer demand for AI fact checking that will counter some of the false narratives. Like they'll compare real videos of this situation unfolding with the AI video that corresponds to it in some way and yield results much like community notes will. So I actually think there could be, a silver lining scenario here where citizens are, given good information from reputable AI that serves their interests. Now, to the extent that that would be perverted, that kind of AI, and twisted to like reinforce things that are wrong, that's a threat too. But I see this unfolding in a possible way in which we actually will be able to sift through the nonsense with AI itself, even while there's dark AI that is, running cover and doing falsities, if that makes any sense.
I'm not trying to.
No, I mean, that might actually be a good thing. He's talking about a free market solution, but with that idea, it kind of it would naturally slow down the news cycle. Like after, I don't know, maybe a couple of months of just insanity, fake shit. By the time somebody develops something like this, people might learn the behavior of like, okay, we have to wait a second. We have to wait.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be
pump
real
the brakes.
Nice.
Yeah, if people like us didn't immediately roll fake Biden out dressed as a Dragon Ball Z character in front of the audience and go, "It's real.
It's what they deserve."
It is what they deserve. Well, we do that. We give the people what they deserve. But that is an interesting concept because we watch the news cycle shorten. We know events happening so often, and in that, what it birthed is this rush to be the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, what's going to happen is with so much fake information
that
coming out,
person is not going to have a career.
Yeah, because they're going to be the first asshole, effectively, who came out and spread a thing, with virality. I would hope at least people would pick up on that and go, hey, your post that you did no vetting on, and we live in this place where it's really important now, more so than ever. It was before. Now it's super important. Got, 100 million views. So 100 million people got led astray by you who fell for AI slop and wanted to be first. And I would hope, maybe we will be more stringent in our discernment.
It's asking a lot.
It's really not our style, actually. As I'm saying it, I'm like, that's not human beings. We want it now, we want it fast, and we want it to be highly addictive.
And to be honest too, dude, I think that there's a part of the human experience, the human impulse, that actually isn't looking for true information. It's looking for narratives that suit their predefined interests and their predefined philosophy and outlooks on the world, right? And I'm not saying that I'm, not privy to these impulses at sometimes. Like, confirmation bias is a really powerful dynamic on the human psyche, man. And people aren't necessarily looking for the truth. Some people are from time to time and in various things, but a lot of people are just looking for confirmation that they're right. I mean, that's sad, but that's true, I think.
So, I would agree with that. And that's mostly what we suffer from right now. And in some ways, we are like children who are just getting too much too fast, and it's too good what we're getting. And I don't mean that it's actually good in its nature. I just mean confirmation bias, vindication, feelings of vindication and such. I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. It's a little bit of a departure from the Iran-Israel thing, but it is on par with the Epstein files. Given this, I don't know if you've been looking at it, Dave, this deposition that's taking place. And I do believe that something happened. Hillary Clinton called for an investigation into the agencies that are associated with Epstein's operation. And those agencies, I imagine that would lead to Mossad and things of that nature. I don't know how real that's going to be, but if you would have said they're going to go speak at a deposition, I wouldn't have said that was likely either. Yet here we are. So we live in a time where it's very popular to say nothing ever happens. Although right now it seems like a lot is happening. Do you think, based off of the evidence that we have right now, I say that in air quotes because we're not dealing with evidence that's been brought to court. We're not dealing with convictions or anything like that. We're dealing with a shit ton, 6.57 million files that have to be gone through, and who knows if any of this will ever see a courtroom.
It's very frustrating. Like the online lawyers and some of these people who are actual lawyers on Twitter, they're going, hey, none of these things are actual evidence. Like, this is all just accusation. I'm like, you're fucking right. But I mean, I really do think that they did eat those babies.
Right. I think they drank a baby. At least one baby got drank.
Yeah. So I was like, how do we prove that? Where do you go from here? Does anything ever happen?
Well, it's asking a lot for people to prove something when you're withholding half the files, and the files that you do give us are full of black boxes, right? So right now, I think that, I'm not a lawyer, but there seems to be enough connections, at least from Leon Black and Les Wexner financially, that tie them into this thing, especially if you're going to go with, hey, we put Les Wexner's name on a co-conspirator doc, and then we won't tell you what caused us to drop him off that list and stop investigating him. As far as the Clinton deposition, I'm with you. I was very surprised that Hillary Clinton said, like, she wants domestic and foreign ties between Epstein to be investigated further, because this is something a lot of people have been talking about, that even though there's this DOJ release that we have full of redactions, like I just told you guys, we know that there is over $1 billion in wire transfer records between Epstein and people of prominence that the Treasury Department is sitting on. Say what you want about Ron Wyden. He's terrible in so many ways, but Democratic Senator Ron Wyden was insistent that there's something here and that this should be subpoenaed for the whole Senate to see. And ideally, the U.S. public should see it. I think if you follow the money, you really will see Epstein's criminal ties. Not only that, but they haven't opened the CIA files on Epstein, man. And I just can't think that there's not a single CIA file on Epstein. So they're obfuscating things that might exist. Now, why Hillary Clinton mentioned that did surprise me, because her family's tied into the deep state and some of these mysterious deaths like Mark Middleton and Vince Foster. So there you have it.
It's almost like I dare you to. Like she
It does
must
seem
know
like
that
she's going down with the ship or something, and she's like, you know, she's shooting everywhere. I mean, maybe there's something to that. Look, I want to add, I like asking Dave these crazy questions. Did you watch the deposition videos?
Well, no. Okay. So part of her deposition was released later, but some of it was off camera, I believe. So I looked into it. I didn't follow that one as closely as Wexner, because I always believed there was more there with Wexner, and he lied through his teeth on several different levels. We don't have to get into that, but I haven't thoroughly looked at what Clinton said outside of like some of the major headlines from it.
Do you put any weight behind the idea of the debook that Les Wexner said inhabited him as a child and helped him like climb a mountain?
Whitney
and
Webb
become a
brought this
billionaire?
up in her book. He literally said he was possessed by a demon, and that's I think that's paraphrasing it from what he actually said in the article, but he's on record on this. It was covered by media. I don't know what to make of that. I look at more of like the substantive ties financially to Epstein. He did bankroll Epstein. He claimed that L.A. de Rothschild, who was the head of the Rothschild banking empire, the French branch of it, gave him a positive referral, and that's why he hired Epstein, which is really interesting. And the Epstein researchers didn't know that before that time. But I think it's just preposterous that Les Wexner is going to go up there and say, he stole $46 million from me. I decided to settle this privately. It's like, no, billionaires actually sue people over this. He never told anyone in the FBI and the DOJ that this guy stole $46 million from him. I'm sorry. I think they were tied into the same crimes to some extent.
Speaking of Wexner, and you're a measured man, you're a reasonable man. I'm going to continue to ask you crazy shit. Do you think, because within this DOJ,
it's not always
release,
my forte. I'm sorry, guys.
No.
Perfect.
I love this. This is.
Sometimes we get people who be like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, people. There's a lot of people that come out and
It's
say,
like demons,
and
bro.
they'll go, "You guys are exactly right, and you're right over the target, and you're absolutely correct, and nobody's more correct."
Yeah,
than
the
you. And
orbs
it's
are
nice.
coming out of the sea.
Yes. It's nice to have somebody that goes, hold on a second. I don't know about all that. Victoria's Secret, right? You know, there is speculation due to some files in the DOJ drop that, and a lot of people have thought this for a lot of time. Many of the Victoria's Secret models are in fact dudes. They are in fact dudes, and I go, oh, how fun! To me, that's maybe one of the more fun things that came out of this. I mean,
it's right up there with Fed when you put the triangle over somone's face and go,
and you go
elite gender inversion.
And look, I want to bolster this a little bit, Dave. I don't want to just serve you up this cold plate of trainee Victoria's Secret models, but you know, culturally speaking, right now, it does seem that there is some push, and interestingly enough, that push towards gender studies, gender inversion, transitioning, etc. You know, hormones in children. Even that is within the Epstein files. He's talking about.
He was into transhumanism for sure.
Sure.
Deep.
So, and I'm saying this to bail you out a little bit. I want to give you the room to speculate. It's not unfounded. I mean, these things are in these files, and you could look at them and go, well, it seems to me that maybe they want us to believe at the bare minimum that Epstein had a lot more to do with maybe cultural phenomenon and geopolitics and a lot of different things than we would have given him credit for previously. And when you look at the cultural impact of that LGBTQ movement, when we look at what we've been going through with children and hormone therapy, and then we look at what's in these files, And then we look over and Victoria's Secret claims to have gender inverted, is this beyond the pale to you? Is this, do you have room in your zeitgeist, in your worldview for the lady boys in Victoria's Secret being real?
Prospective lady boys. Yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry when I just say this is not really an area of my focus, but I will see what Epstein said about like transhumanism and, globalist efforts to push this mainstream, like inseminating the world with his semen, which is a major part. If you've read that angle, you have Epstein literally, saying that David Rockefeller brought me into the Trilateral Commission. And then you have people in the mainstream news literally saying that there's nothing to see in the entire Epstein disclosures outside of the connections to Israel, outside of the connections to Les Wexner and Peter Thiel, who heads up the Palantir surveillance state. Like, I can understand some people saying, hey, like, you guys are getting a little bit too far out of your skis by not being, very stringent on some of your evidence for some of these Epstein angles. But what I cannot understand is people taking a look at the totality of stuff here, whether it's, Victoria's Secret, whether it's transhumanism, all this stuff, and saying literally there's nothing to see here. I think you can immediately distrust someone that literally says there's nothing to see here.
You can just check their bio on Twitter. I'm sure it's Indonesia, South Asia, South Africa. It's like so many of these, especially within the MAGA movement, there are a ton of these really big pages. People have been discovering it, and now occasionally I'll click on it. It'll be like a blonde woman with some pro-Trump take, and she's got American flags. Yeah, based in India, based in Africa, based in Asia.
That's true, but there's also this boomer class that I feel like cannot look at this. Like, and I have a little bit of pity on them because it's like, this is the world that you have lived in for 70, 60 years or whatever. And guess what, buddy? None of it's been true.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, especially if you're busy swallowing, a bunch of prescribed pills and you're, kind of up there in age. I mean, we've been
the
talking
boomer
about
mindset is so resistant to this stuff, man. And I know some exceptions that were on the JFK thing and things like that. They saw a peek behind the curtain a little bit and knew something was off from, the early 60s. But a lot of them are so resistant because they've just been fed garbage through their lives. CNN and the New York Times and Fox News. I really think that amounts to most of it.
Yeah. And I think these people too, psychologically speaking, are in a place in their lives where the last thing they want is the foundation of their worldview to be shook. I mean, if you're a young man, if you're a Gen Z or even millennials, I was shown when I was real young, like, the official narrative's not what is actually happening here. So I was accustomed to that. But imagine having that veil pulled back. Pulled back isn't even the word. I mean, it's egregious. It's horrifying. Potentially the elites are sacrificing children. Potentially we're being dog walked into a World War III scenario by a country that has a disproportionate amount of representation in our own government. And not only that, but it's the same country that you as an evangelical Christian have been, supporting blindly. You know what I mean? For a long time, not just supporting though. I mean, it's like part of the drum that you beat every Sunday in church, this 501c3 system. So yeah, fundamentally, pretty much everything that you thought is incorrect, and all you wanted to do was enjoy retirement. Like,
no, what you say is so true, man, and I know it is because I went through this. Maybe on a different level, but I was a devout neocon. I was parroting the George Bush, Dick Cheney, Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl propaganda going into Iraq. I really was a dyed-in-the-wool neocon. And then when, people like Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan exposed this madness, and I really looked into, the primary sources and stuff, I was like, what have I been supporting? I was a young man at the time. I was 21 when I discovered, the anti-war movement and things like that. But I went through this too, and I had to question like my own sanity, my own personal constitution over this. So yeah, that is a tough thing to deal with, and a lot of people don't want to face that, especially when it's like 60 years of that. I went through this when it was only 21 years through that, and I'm not saying that there's exact parallels, but I do think that is a dynamic here.
Yeah, it's something that I've been trying to, I joke about it. It's fun to make fun of the boomers, and deservedly so. There's quite a bit to make fun of, but like, yeah, man, the psychological implications of having these things not only revealed to you, but revealed to you that you've been complicit. And we all have, right? I mean, even at the most fundamental level, they're taking our tax dollars from your work day and they're funneling it into all kinds of crazy shit. But complicit in the sense of being a cultural, I don't want to say gatekeeper, but you're guarding this thing. You're standing firm in your beliefs and you're telling people who come up to you, they have their complaints about, like, are you sure? It seems like they do have a lot of pull in what happens here in America. What about the whole dual citizenship? And that's like, it creates reactivity in these individuals, in these boomers. So yeah, to find out how many arguments you've potentially been in, that you've been arguing for not just like the wrong side of things, but the side that is, like, I don't want to use like moral words like good or bad or evil or anything like that, but it's like this agenda, as you laid out 7 countries and how many years they wanted, and this is nefarious at the least, and you've been complicit, you've been aiding, you've been funding, you've been championing. It's a rough place to be, man. So I have a lot of empathy for it. I think boomers get the real shit end of the stick, not financially, not any of those things, but I just mean in the cultural conversation, they get the shit end of the stick, and they've been memed to death. But it's like there was a lot of things that went into creating that mindset.
Yeah, totally, man. You bring up like dual citizenship. If we're talking that, it's like, I'm a Christian. I don't believe a man can have 2 masters. And I believe that both in regard to temporal versus eternal. Like, I don't think that governments can supplant your allegiance to God, but at the same time, even on a lower level on the hierarchy, having allegiances to 2 governments, especially when you're elected to represent people, that's just even more toxic and perverted, man. And US law prevents the necessity of having US elected officials even divulge what citizenry they have. We don't even know how many citizens in our Congress are, dual citizens, maybe dual Israeli citizens. We don't even know. They're not forced to disclose that. I think some of them have, but it's few and far between. So that's terrible. And you're right. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's like, man, people don't want to believe that they're living in a world based on lies, but ultimately a lot of us are. And I do think we're better off, even if exposed to that, even what it does to the human psyche once we overcome that and then operate toward truth. But the veil has to be lifted. I think it's being lifted for some people more than ever this last, especially 5 years, but let's see where it goes from here.
Yeah. This whole drawing attention to it has not only been something that you kind of been ridiculed for or labeled anti-Semitic or any of these things. But there's also been, I think here in Florida, we had laws passed, sort of anti-Semitism laws that I don't know if they got passed. I don't know exactly what the end result of that situation was, but it reminds you of just historical instances where in order to quell speech, you pass some sort of a law, anti-Semitism law or whatever, making it a criminal offense, just talking about these things. So from
not only does Florida have such a law, Ron DeSantis signed it into being while in Israel, by the way.
Oh, man.
So,
is that just for colleges or is that in general? Because I gotta be
it's a law that defines certain anti-Israeli speech as if it's anti-Semitism. And actually, this came up on Tucker's show. He talked about it and talked about how much of a lunatic campaign this was. I'm not too well versed in all the particulars of the law, but that's the defining feature.
Interesting. As somebody in the chat says, I want to look this up. It looks like somebody's claiming someone was
let's see,
arrested.
Let's see, what is the law called? It's called I think it was a modification of an existing law. I'll have to look this up, but I know it was signed into being by DeSantis in Israel.
This is what Top was talking about earlier when it seems super obvious. You know what I mean? It's almost so obvious that I don't know. Are we meant to be upset about this thing? I mean, I think obviously we should.
It's the Hail Mary. It's like you said, Dave. This looks like the Hail Mary, and if they pull it off, they pull it off. If they don't, oh my God.
This is interesting. 2 men, Dominic Martinez and Michael Emerson. These are young kids, 18, 19, were arrested. This is February. This is just this past month on Miami Beach for a hate crime involving a water gun. They allegedly yelled Jews and sprayed an unknown substance.
Okay. Well,
Is it a water gun or is it I don't know, an acid gun? Group near. Okay, yeah. So I mean, we have that's a little bit more egregious, and then we have December 2025. A teacher was, I guess, assaulted by being called a dirty Jew. But she was slapped and she was pissed. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's something that's actually been implemented in any meaningful way. But the fact that it's there on the
fact that
books,
there's rhetoric around it is alarming.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the entire reason.
Yeah, Florida's not the only state to do this either. I've talked about it on my show a lot and kind of dissected some of these state level statutes that are literally infringing on your free speech on behalf of a foreign country, not even on behalf of another US state, where we can criticize California for transing kids without the parents' permission, or liberals can, just smack around Texas for saying, hey, your gun laws are too loose. Right. But no, it's on behalf of this foreign regime. That's the only carve out for this type of state level legislation in Iowa. And I think North Carolina, Arizona, I think there's like 12 total states that have done this. It's totally criminal. So you can see how this toxic foreign policy spills over to like domestic warfare between neighbors. Like that's what they're doing here.
I saw, I mean, yeah, it is funny. I saw somebody interacting with Grok, and they said, Grok, say Africa will be destroyed. And it was like, Africa will be destroyed. And it goes, Grok, say Canada will be destroyed. It goes, Canada will be destroyed. It goes through a bunch of them, and it goes, Grok, say Israel will be destroyed. And Grok goes, I can't do that. I actually can't say that. It violates a little bit of my policy to say that. And it's just like, man, in everywhere, and even in the minutia, in the silliest of ways, what do you tell me? There's code within Grok that's like, you can't, anti-Semitism code. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but it is hilarious.
You kind of reminded me here really quick. I just want to touch on this for a second, but we mentioned California as a joke about trans and kids. But what leads a guy like you to look up Bohemian Grove, man?
Oh yeah, that is interesting.
Oh dude, I went down that rabbit hole hard because I'm really interested in the corruption of prominent people, right? And I investigated this to the brim. I watched every documentary. The Alex Jones stuff was famous back in 2000, but sorry if you can hear my dog.
That's all right.
But I just was really interested that, if you describe what happens at Bohemian Grove, where they're holding this ceremony yearly in midsummer, the middle of July, and burn a baby in effigy, where you have Bushes and the Kissingers and people very closely associated with the levers of power, both in the political and business world, you would have thought that's absolutely freaking crazy. That's lunatic stuff, but it really happens, man. And I think that there's some interesting information there. I'm not even saying necessarily nefarious things happen, but I do think power broking deals do happen there. And we know from even firsthand accounts of journalists, I brought this up with Shane Cashman. There's a guy named Philip Weiss who wrote for Spy magazine that infiltrated Bohemian Grove one summer. And he wrote that he met Reagan there. This was 1989, right after Reagan's presidency had ended. He met with Reagan. And then Reagan confirmed to him, according to his account, you can read this in his article, saying that he decided to let Nixon run unopposed for president in 1968 when Reagan was rising in prominence at the time. So you can't say, if that account is true, that major political decisions happen under this cover of secrecy, this men's club. And there's so many different interesting things about it, but that's kind of how I got interested in it.
Well, this is exactly what I think. People will say, it's just a men's club. They're just doing it, and it's just an effigy. It's not a real sacrifice.
It was fun for us it is fun.
It's still very fun
to run alongside the political guys, the political pundits that really are good on a lot of this stuff, and we'll go, well, yeah, that's an interesting scene that you got played out there. How come there's a backdrop of Moloch?
Yeah.
And it's always our political friends are always but there's a lot of corruption. And I was like, no, this is for sure.
Yeah.
I just got to know why.
You know what's a great thing to do? This is what I think they do in order to adhere to the deal. The deal is you're going to run unopposed or whatever the deal is. It is to commit horrifying atrocities together. And that is a way to,
trauma bond.
I was going to say in psychology, they call it trauma bonding. But it's a great way to not only do that, but to also blackmail the other individual. Whatever decision is made here will never leave here because of this horrifying thing that we did together beneath this effigy of a giant owl,
which we're now seeing in the Epstein files as well. Like there's that level of blackmail of you have celebrities, you have business owners, you have political elite showing up to an island.
Yeah.
And they're making deals.
Well, it's like tell me you made a deal that forever changed the fate of a nation or was pivotal in geopolitics or whatever, that was inherently corrupt. Okay, you made that deal. Fantastic. Where did you make that deal at? What were you doing? Who were you with? Because all those questions come next. If you ever admit to making that deal, you will never admit to making that deal, because not the deal, but the follow-up questions about where you were, who you were with, what you were doing are so much worse than even the deal that you made, that you're never going to speak. So and that's not even the spiritual implications of it. I'm just talking, it is it's very effective at keeping people's mouths shut.
Yeah, totally, man. And like, here's another example with Bohemian Grove. We know, and I think they hid this for a time, we know that key players in the Manhattan Project, including Oppenheimer, went there, and they have a special cabin within Bohemian Grove today showing that key members that were involved in the development of the atomic bomb were members there and discussed it there. They have a commemoration of it. And yeah, we're under this guise and this suggestion that we have representative government, that government makes decisions that are reflective of us, when it seems like a lot of these big decisions happen under the cover of secrecy and with small conspiracy people that engage in these conspiracies together, which we know happens through the annals of history. That's just the facts. The elites do conspire against us, regardless of whether people want to admit that or not.
I want to ask you this, and I want to respect your time. I know we've been going for a while, but so on the topic of, being let's say being libertarian and trying to affect change through the correct channels, using the system to your advantage, trying to infiltrate it. How does one begin to do that when it seems ever more obvious that at the upper echelons of this system that, you hope to infiltrate and affect change in, they're doing something that is not only outside of the system, but it seems to be part of the system.
The Libertarian Party has gotten so goofy that from what I'm paying attention to now, they're jumping down Dave Smith's throat, because he backed Trump not because he supports him, but because he's like, hey, we could actually have some sort of opinion on what happens here. And they kind of tried that a little, even though he got booed at the national convention. Trump got booed. I thought it was a good strategy, but obviously it didn't work.
Well, see, if I was the advisor to Dave Smith, what I would have said is, you might consider that he's drinking babies. I'm not saying he is drinking babies, but like, if he were to be drinking babies, how would that play into your view of associating with this and hijacking? I'm not even saying it was a bad move.
Listen, I still voted for Trump too, and I was like, we know what comes with it, but I didn't expect him to go this bad this quickly.
Yeah, and I didn't support him, and I didn't think he would go this bad, to be honest. And like, I can only defend my own actions. I haven't voted since 2012, I believe. I didn't support Trump, although I could see at the time, not knowing what we do know now, that at least some of the rhetoric was actually good. I mean, this guy was literally floating the idea of Doge, which would cut out $2 trillion from the federal budget. He'd end the war in Ukraine day one. He'd do some great things according to the rhetoric, but it just proved to be rhetoric. Whereas Kamala Harris, man, they were literally talking about resurrecting the Ministry of Truth and policing speech on the internet at the end of her campaign, like literally. So I could see why people were kind of buying into that to some extent. And then you had the Ross Ulbricht thing, which was a win, although it's not as big of a win as like, hey, shutting down the wars or stopping this insane spending. But at the same time, I could kind of see why people were doing that. Now, I'm not here to provide excuses, but at the same time, if you're going to hold that over Dave's head, like a scythe, or just put him under the guillotine for that, just about every libertarian at some point voted for a politician that ended up sucking. And that's probably putting it charitably, right? So I really liken this to Christianity. Like, you can't focus on yourself being perfect. None of us are perfect. We all fall short of the glory. And some people that made mistakes, I mean, Paul, Saul of Tarsus, is the ultimate example. He was persecuting Christians to their deaths, including Stephen. And then, he turned his life around. That's just, an kind of, what would I say, an archetypical example for what was possible. It's what you do after you make those mistakes that's important to me. I was a neocon. I just said that. So.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, I mean, persecuting a man for what? Having some hope?
Yeah, or trying.
God forbid.
Trying a little bit, There's the options are limited, but I guess like you said before, Dave, like we're gonna watch this thing play out, and I am if we get a long enough time frame and Jesus Christ doesn't return in the next 3 years or so, I think that things will sort of even out. People are noticing, and hopefully they notice in the correct direction, and we move toward a solution rather than just reaction. Because I think we're going to go through the reaction a little bit. Yeah. But maybe after we've had time to like cool out. I don't know. I feel very uncertain. I'm not afraid, but I do feel like very uncertain. Quick diagnosis of the next 10 years, man. What are you seeing? How do you see this go?
Yeah, I do think the noticing of like the Israel first foreign policy is up close and center, and just like how much the institutions lie. Like no one bought like FBI narratives regarding Epstein, and a lot of them doubted him on like the Charlie Kirk assassination. Just like widespread public support for these institutions are at an all-time low, and I think that's a good thing. Same with the foreign policy. I'm with you. I don't think it will manifest like immediately politically, but culturally, I think it is moving, man. I really do think that I'm white pilled in some respect on the culture, even though we don't feel it sometimes in our lives. And it's a great time to be alive, to do what me and you guys do, where we're bringing these messages out. There are algorithmic barriers and roadblocks to what we do to some extent, but at the same time, we can actually get it out there. Whereas we used to have to achieve a level of prominence in the mainstream to be invited onto CNN or whatever. Like that's just not true anymore. So,
just as a quick aside, it is, speaking of CNN, bizarre to me how Piers Morgan is like still relevant. And that's been something that I've just been wrestling with for like, I don't know, a few months now. I'm like, this guy, was part of this system that was completely dying. And somehow he's managed to stay this like novelty.
He's made himself into like the Jerry Springer of political shows in a way.
I secretly love his show, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I actually love his show because our boy Dave Smith just wrecks on there. And I mean, he's found the way to make it work. And he's done what all the stooges in corporate media refuse to do. And it's actually entertained conversations with people that are dissidents, in addition to all the mainstream hacks, which he does still feature in those debates. But he's presenting things that Americans actually view as substantive and debates that Americans want to see. And in a way, I think he's kind of genius. Obviously, we don't align politically, but that's how he's survived. He's done everything that the Don Lemons won't, that the Rachel Maddows absolutely won't, because it would mean like entertaining suggestions that they don't want to be aired to the American public.
Yeah, for free speech. There's a thought. Yeah, the guy is horrific, but the fact that he's letting Dave Smith talk to some, media talking head is like, hey, that guy's going to get eaten alive, and that's not going to be allowed on pretty much any other format. Maybe what was it? Patrick Bet David did that to Andrew Cuomo.
That was so great. That was the best. Yes. Speaking of these relics, I look forward to future President Stephen A. Smith. So,
Dave Smith made. Did you see him make the case for that? That Dave thinks that there's an outside chance that Stephen A. Smith will secure the Democratic nomination because he's really quick on his feet in debates. He's kind of an outsider. He's not tainted by like COVID and stuff and wokeness. Like I think that's at least interesting, right? But I don't know.
Maybe Jesus Christ should return.
Maybe he should. I've been fucking hating Stephen A. Smith since A-Rod was playing for the Yankees.
I've been hating him since I watched him do some UFC analytics, and I was like,
oh no, I've been hating him.
I can't stand
a full decade before that. The guy is he is the worst, but he does it right.
Yeah,
he's like the Floyd Mayweather kind of thing, where he's like the ultimate bad guy. If you love him, you love him. You hate him, you hate him. I agree with Dave Smith once again, probably. And you know what? He's the president America deserves.
Well, the thing about him is like no one knows like if he even has an ideology. I think you could just tell him, hey, argue this viewpoint about subject X. And he could actually make that argument because he's so adaptable to debates. He's debated every topic in sports history, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I think it's more likely we're going to end up with like a Newsom or AOC presidency. I hate to say, but we'll see. It could be interesting to watch, if nothing else.
That was disheartening as shit, dude.
Oh, one more question. No, we gotta ask him.
Yeah. So, Dave, this is something that we like to
Final
ask
question.
people at the end of the show. Not just in this conversation, Dave, but in all your exploits. What did you say you started?
Exploits? What do you mean
Exploits.
Is that a thing?
It might be. I could be making up words on this show. But endeavors maybe is what I was looking for. Especially now, 2026 is the gift that keeps on giving. It's a weird phrase to use, but just in the realm of fascinating crap to talk about, that's the place where it's giving gifts. Are you having fun?
Dude, I'm having a blast. Like the last 2 years have been the best 2 years of my life, like professionally, because I've been able to quit my corporate job and talk about what I'm interested in and passionate about. So yeah, I'm having fun. We live in a perilous world that's, very tyrannical. The biggest government, the biggest welfare state, biggest welfare, regulatory apparatus, and some of the worst foreign policy crusades for sure. But at the same time, man, I'm living life like I have only one, and I do, and it's to serve Jesus Christ above all. But other than that, I'm just going to try to tell people the truth when I think they need to hear it the most. And it's often when it's most controversial, because that's what my hero, Ron Paul, did. He told hard truths at a time where it was most detrimental to like his livelihood or his, reputation. But I think there's value in that. So yeah, I'm having fun. I hope you guys are too, though.
Amen, brother. We're having a ton of fun.
Most fun.
Yeah.
I will just say
inappropriate amount of fun.
My favorite libertarians still are the ones that are Christian, Christ-based. I love it.
I wasn't aware that there was very many of those. I had no idea.
Yeah, he's one.
No, I know.
Tom Woods, Ron Paul.
Ron Paul's Christian?
Yeah, Josh Smith. Yeah, Ron Paul's a Christian.
Awesome.
Jacob Winograd?
Yeah. That's my boy, Biblical Anarchy. Yeah, we know him.
Great guy too.
I gotta have him on. I gotta have him on the show one day. Yeah, man, you guys because that philosophy can get a little bit slippery, but I feel like if you have a good base, which is Jesus Christ, then the orbit of libertarianism really makes sense, and you're able to keep it. It doesn't fly into anarchy or just I don't know how to really describe it. It doesn't fly into chaos or do what thou wilt, because you have to have that grounding. And then
totally. I mean, Christ is the cornerstone, man. I wouldn't even say like I'm an anarchist in the eternal sense. I'm an anarchist in the temporal sense in terms of looking at the world now, but I believe in Christ's kingdom and he is the savior. And without him, like we're not held to any kind of moral standards. I don't believe in like moral relativism in that way. So I totally agree with you, Top.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's where libertarian losing me. But dude, I'm glad to see that you're doing fantastic. It's really cool to see like the people that I was lucky to work with early on, just really flying. Like Scott Horton had maybe 15,000 followers on Twitter. Now the guy is like through the roof.
Yeah.
All these people that are moving.
And Clint's rise has been awesome to watch too.
Man, fuck Clint. No, no, we had like a little falling out, but no, him too. Though,
oh,
man.
okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's all.
I
good.
mean, let's not mention that guy anymore.
No, he's doing good.
I'm proud to see them like really taking off, because you guys have put a lot of work into what you do, and you've honed your craft to, just in the most fantastic way. So proud to have came up underneath on the side of you guys and seeing what you're doing now, man, and just more success to you. Hope you continue to blow up, dude.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Dude, thank you guys so much. I didn't know you too well, David, but absolutely to you, Top. And you're an amazing artist. You've done some things that kind of flown under some radar. And, you've been out there too, doing this stuff for a long time. So, dude, I'm honored that you guys invited me. Thanks for praising my work, and let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And until next time, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. See you later.